Welcome to the Outside Voice Show. I am your host, Marva Crutchfield, and today our topic is on credit union movement, the impact on financial wellness and economic restoration. Joining me today is Bill Hampel, Chief Economist and Chief Policy Officer at Credit Union National Association, John Bratsakis, President and CEO with the Maryland and D.C. Credit Union Association, and Mario Mejia, the Director of Business Development of the Ontario Federal Credit Union. Welcome our guests.
All right, thank you.
Now, when you think of a credit union, this whole movement thing, you think of a large body of a controversial group or organization like the civil rights movement or the feminist movement. What is a credit union movement? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we're sort of a business, but we're a business with a human face. So some people call it the credit union industry. And we are that. We're businesses that operate and provide services to members, to consumers. We call them members. But because we do it as cooperatives, we just like to think ourselves as a movement instead of just an industry.
Okay. So give me a little history behind the whole credit union. How did it come about? Okay.
We've had credit unions in the U.S. for a little over 100 years now. And the idea came over from Europe. For financial cooperatives, and it really sprung up a little over 100 years ago in the U.S. in New England, in the Northeast, and it spread through the rest of the country. And the basic idea is a credit union is like a bank, except it only serves its members. And the big difference is that as cooperatives, credit unions are owned by their members. And so, for instance, if you're a commercial bank, the bank is owned by its stockholders, and it has to work for the benefit of its stockholders. If it's a credit union, it's owned by its customers, by its members, and so the credit union is trying to do the best it can for its members, its customers.
Okay. What is the mission behind credit unions?
Well, I think it's all about focusing, it's all about you, I guess would be a way to say it. It's all about the member. And I think that's one of the inherent differences between credit unions and other financial institutions is that they're created and managed and worked on by people that are focused on, as Bill said, that everyone's a member, everyone's an owner. So they're focused on, the mission is to serve their needs. And I think as credit unions, earlier when they started, we all serve a specific community. Whether it's a corporation, whether it's a geographic community, could be an association that's served, and that's their focus.
So why do you think someone would want to bank with a credit union as opposed to a traditional bank?
A lot of times, being out in the field, a lot of times when I speak to people, it's really the knowledge of knowing what the difference is to get the most benefits out of it. Some people will tell you off the beginning, it's loans. You know, it's the higher deposit rates that they get or the better interest rates that they get. And it can be a series of many different things. A lot of it is really just that ability to speak to someone that have a cheers approach, if you may, of people who want to help other people. So, for example, if you were an owner of your own institution, you would probably give yourself the best type of treatment. And that's what you find at a credit union.
Exactly. And you're right. A lot of people do not know the benefits that credit unions offer. We captured some random footage of someone on the street to find out how they identify with credit unions. Let's take a look.
Please state your full name and your age.
My name is Carol Diane Nyler. I'm 32 years old.
Okay, Carol. Do you know the difference between a credit union and a traditional bank?
I do not.
Do you have any credit union affiliations?
Yes, I do.
Anyone in particular?
Navy Federal Credit Union. My parents were members of it and my mother worked for them, so I just kind of ended up as a member there just through association.
Do you have any traditional bank affiliations?
I do, yes.
How long have you been banking?
Not very long with my traditional bank.
So is there anything, if you could think of one thing that you absolutely, positively, head over heels love about your traditional bank, what would it be? If anything at all.
I guess the location convenience, that I'm able to find my bank anywhere when I look around.
What would you think? What do you think is probably one of the most beneficial parts of a traditional bank for young adults?
I don't know, other than the convenience of it. I'm not really sure. I haven't looked much into it.
Have you utilized your credit union bank?
Previously, yes, for the use of credit cards and personal loans.
That's all I got.
How can someone become a member of a credit union? John?
Sure. People can become a member of a credit union in a few different ways. One is their employer. A traditional way of joining a credit union is that the employer has a credit union that's focused on serving their employees. Another way is that there's community credit unions that define or that people can join in a defined community. And then another way is that people can also join credit unions through an association, an affiliation that they may have. And they can do it in a variety of ways. Credit unions can do it in person. They can also do it online. Technology has been a great equalizer, I think, in the financial services industry. And credit unions have embraced that and been able to do that in certain areas.
We even have a website to help people find a credit union. It's called asmarterchoice.org.
Okay.
Just Google a smarter choice, and there'll be a searcher. You put in a little information about yourself, and it'll give you back a list of the credit unions you likely are eligible to join.
I find it interesting because a lot of churches now are opening their own credit unions. Can any organization, is there a criteria for an organization or a company to open a credit union?
Yeah, well, anyone can start a credit union. And one of the issues is you need enough people to start a credit union. You need at least a few thousand people to start a credit union to be big enough to offer all the services. So often what happens these days is if a group smaller than that thinks they want to start a credit union, when they start looking into it, they find out that actually it's a better idea for them to attach themselves to an existing credit union. And so we have a lot of credit unions today that serve lots of different groups. They call them multiple group credit unions, where a bunch of smaller groups have gone and attached themselves to a larger credit union in order to provide service to their members.
What services do they provide versus traditional banks? Are their fees higher, lower?
Everything.
Everything?
All of the basics. You know, a long time ago, credit unions only offered a basic savings account and a simple personal loan. Now they offer the same financial products you can get anywhere else.
Mortgage loans?
Credit card loans, mortgage loans, new car loans, used car loans, student loans, unsecured loans, home equity loans, any kind of loan you can imagine. On the other side, they offer savings accounts, checking accounts, certificates, IRAs, debit cards, mobile banking, we call it mobile credit unioning, well some of us do, online transactions, basically anything you can get from any other financial institution, credit unions now offer.
Right.
Take a look at some credit union member benefits on the next slide.
All right, so please state your name and age.
Virginia Murphy, I'm 18.
Oh. Okay, Miss Virginia. When you think of credit unions, what comes to mind?
Navy Federal,
Okay. Any particular reason why?
because my dad has Navy Federal. He used to be in the Army.
Okay. Do you have any other credit union affiliations?
Not really, no.
Do you know the difference between a credit union and a traditional bank?
Credit unions are kind of, I guess they're fancier. Everyone seems
Okay.
to like them better.
Okay. Any particular reason why? Is it services? Is it locations? What would you?
I think they kind of take better care of the members there a little bit better.
In any particular way? If you don't know, that's good.
I don't know because I'm not actually don't have an account there.
Okay.
But I know my dad really liked the credit union more than the bank.
Okay. As a young adult, how many years of banking experience do you have? Like, and how long have you been with the bank?
About 3 years
Okay.
of my own account.
And with your traditional bank, what is something that you absolutely, positively, head over heels love about your bank? Or if it doesn't exist, then it doesn't exist. But if you do love something, what would it be?
I can take pictures of my checks
Okay.
and deposit them without actually being active and I like being lazy. I'm sorry.
Okay. So convenience. You like the convenience and the technology.
Oh, definitely.
Great. Thank you.
John, are all credit unions created equal?
You know, I think, Bill, we talked about that earlier. I think, credit unions are created in ways that they are equal in that they're focused on serving their members, serving their member owners with that singular focus in mind. What's it, Bill?
Yeah.
What else should our viewers know about credit unions?
Yeah, I think as we've been talking, one of the things, and Mario can probably speak to this even in more detail with his being out in the field with members, but the member experience that credit unions provide, one of the things we usually that we'll speak to and speak about often, especially with consumer groups, and that is, it's not what we do as credit unions, but it's how we do it. It's that focus on the member. It's that experience that you get. And Mario, maybe you can share some of what you all do.
I can agree. You know, we find ourselves in a day and age where if a family, for example, makes to the dinner table, they could actually literally probably talk to each other from their cell phones. We've gotten away from the human interaction, and not even necessarily the human interaction, but more so the you know what, I'll help you and not know you type of thing. As things continue to move forward, traditional banks and other institutions have excelled in a lot of different things. We've excelled in a lot of different ways. But one thing that I believe, just from being out in the field and dealing with the members, is that we've never lost complacency of our roots. We know why we're in existence. We know who we're here to serve. We know who the boss is, type of thing, which is our members. And we activate things that's needed for them, based on their needs, based on our member groups that we deal with, based on our sponsor, whoever our sponsor is, for the reason that we're in existence. There are priorities at all times, even when things around us, people may be doing other things, but we kind of hold steady to our core values.
Do you think individuals will kind of feel left out because they're not getting that personal interaction? I know, because when I go to my credit union, I'm picking up the phone and there's no person there, so I'm looking at the glass. You know, what do you think about that?
You know, I think it changes from credit union to credit union. The member experience is the number one priority for just the movement as a whole. You find more creative ways that people are doing different things to really be convenient or go for speed. Which means that the fastest, quickest, you know, kind of cool little gimmick that happens is out there. Some people like that. I guess it really may depend on how you choose the bank. If you want to use your iPhone or any other device and not have that membership, have that relationship with someone, it's there. If you do want the relationship, it should always be there, but you may not find that in every institution. I don't know if you wanted to.
Well, I think it evolves, and I think that experience is, whether you're on the phone, whether there's a physical body in front of you, whether you're utilizing the internet, chatting with, customer service help, member service help, that interaction, I think that's where you see that focus and attention to detail is, regardless of how you're interacting with your members, trying to create that connection, as Mario talks about, and I think that's what credit unions focus on.
And the other thing is that, to provide the convenient service so that if in some credit unions you'll go in and you won't be talking to someone, you'll be picking up the phone, but to do a quick transaction. But if an issue comes up that needs more personal attention, that typically there's a human just down the hall that you can go talk to. And then I think the other thing behind the experience at a credit union, and we get this when we do focus groups and talk to credit union members, is when you're a member of the credit union, you get a really strong impression that they aren't out to get you. They aren't.
That's true.
The job of the credit union is not to maximize its profits. The job of the credit union is to do as much as it can for its members. Now, it has to make some net income to build reserves to be safe and sound for the future, but it doesn't have to pay dividends to stockholders. And so you can trust a credit union more because they're not trying to get the most profit out of you. They're not trying to talk you into something that does well for the credit union. They're going to try to be advising you on something that does well for you. And that permeates what all the credit unions do.
Right, and I think our young people will appreciate the convenience and the quickness of just going into the bank, getting on their cell phones, and just taking care of their business. And in this fast-paced environment that we live in now. So.
But even in research, they still want to have the ability, when they need that help, to access that help, to Bill's point, to get to that, that connection, that person to person if needed. And I think that's part of what makes credit unions special.
Exactly. Okay, coming up next, we'll talk to John Brutsakas about the Metropolitan D.C. area credit unions. We'll be right back.
Filing for Social Security online is a lot easier than relearning the Watusi.
Welcome back to Outside Voice. I'm Marva Crutchfield, and we're here with John. John, what is the role of the Regional Association?
Sure. So the Regional Association, there's a network of state leagues association to represent credit unions. And our first and foremost issue is we advocate on behalf of our credit unions. So both in the district and in Annapolis and Maryland, we advocate on behalf of our credit unions for the working environment and work with regulators, work with legislators. And we also do that in Capitol Hill in working with our legislators and the national regulators to help our credit unions. We also provide services such as education, training. We work together in collaborative efforts, and we also do awareness work in bringing our credit unions together to tell the story of credit unions as a whole.
Give me an example of some of the programs that have the most impact.
Sure. One of the programs that we've done as a group in the DC metro area was there's the Financial Fitness Expo that goes on every January. And a few years ago, we worked together and had a discussion with the expo about doing a financial fitness component to that.
Okay.
So the issue was to, understanding that coming out of the downturn and the challenges that people had. So how could credit unions come together and deliver some education to help people get some financial fitness and discipline back? And we worked together, brought in Gene Chaskey as a speaker, but also provided an opportunity for consumers could come to the booth, come to the area, and actually do a kind of a budget update, and put in their information, take a look at their credit report, and work through that.
Wow, you really are for your members.
Right.
Is there anything that makes credit unions in the metro area different than others across the nation?
I don't know if I would say that they're different. I would say their focus may be a little bit different because, we had Mario's with us during the whole program, and there's a lot of agency credit unions. There's just within the district alone, there's 50 credit unions just located in the district that serve a variety of groups and different agencies, and that's unique. Also in the region, you have some of the largest credit unions in the world that are positioned in the metro area. So that makes it unique, and that credit unions are in this area. They're focused on the consumers they work with and the members that they have. So I think that's probably, I wouldn't know if I would say it was different, but it's unique. It's definitely unique with the amount of institutions that are concentrated in the area.
What are some of the favorite programs or focuses of the association?
Sure, I think, well, one that we do that's really kind of a national program is the Cherry Blossom Race. Credit unions sponsor the Cherry Blossom Race.
And everyone loves the cherry blossoms.
So that's one of those areas where, over the last 10 years, credit unions have raised over $7 million to go to Children's Miracle Network. And the funds that are raised actually go back to every local community. So if credit unions in the Midwest are raising money, that's going back to the Children's Hospital there. It goes to National, or it'll go to Hopkins. So as a benefit, that's one of those where credit unions come together and really focus on that. And I think one of our other favorites was the Expo. Coming together to really reach out to the community to do what we could to help educate the community about things that they may not think about.
Right. Are there any other projects on the horizon that we can expect from you guys?
One of the things that we're working on is we're working on getting the word out about credit unions, helping consumers understand that credit unions are their best choice for financial services. Reaching out so when they hear and see other advertisements for credit unions and the one that's right for them, because while anyone can join a credit union.
Right.
Everyone can't join any credit union. So you have to qualify.
Right.
So we want to make sure that people understand what credit unions are about and that it is the best alternative for them, and get to a smarter choice so they can search the credit union that best fits their needs.
What are some of the credit unions that people cannot join, and why can't they join them?
Well, for instance, if it's an employer-based credit union, I don't, I'm not part of the military, for instance,
Right.
so
but
I
a family
couldn't
member
join.
can a family member join if they are, if their spouse or sibling
Is a member.
is a member, so they can join?
They could join, but again, they'd have to still be, somehow they're going to have to qualify for that. So
Okay.
family members are, but for instance, I can't go to Department of Interior Credit Union
Right.
and join, because I don't, that's unique for them. That I don't have that opportunity to do. So that's where it gets a little bit unique for credit unions, because I think there is a credit union for everyone. It's just not everyone can join any credit union. So.
Do you find that a lot of young people are not aware of the benefits and aware of credit unions versus traditional banks?
I think we find that the awareness issue is a challenge. With younger folks, I think it is, but I also think the mission of credit unions, and when you take a look at the younger generation coming up, match up pretty well. And I think that that's where, as we do more and credit unions reach out more and become more aware, I think consumers will do that, especially younger consumers.
Right. How are credit unions giving back to the financial recovery or stability in the area?
Sure. I think that was very evident when the downturn first started, that credit unions, a lot of financial institutions retreated. They weren't lending. They weren't reaching out. They weren't necessarily working with consumers. And credit unions did the exact opposite. Credit unions opened their doors. They worked with their members on how can they help them with whatever financial difficulties they were having. And we actually saw credit unions continue to lend during that time, when it was the most difficult time to get credit in a lot of areas.
Absolutely.
And I think that was a big differentiator. I think credit unions really did a fantastic job standing up and being there when they needed it.
Are there different requirements in this area as opposed to other places in the country?
No, the issue, the unique part is that you still have to be eligible. So those restrictions are still there.
Okay. Thank you, John. Coming up next, we'll talk to Bill about the Credit Union National Association. We'll be right back.
Across America, service learning is helping students improve their grades and their communities by connecting the classroom with community service. Working together, students solve real problems, build new skills, and apply their knowledge in a whole new way. Inside the classroom and out, service learning opens new doors and brings learning to life. Get your school involved. Visit learnandserve.gov to find out how.
Welcome back to Outside Voice. I'm Marva Crutchfield. We're here with Bill.
Hi.
Hi again, Bill. We talked about the regional sector of credit unions. What is the role of the National Association?
Yeah. I work for CUNA, the Credit Union National Association, and we're basically an advocacy association or organization for all credit unions nationwide. Our job is to advocate for credit unions, to represent them. And we do that here in Washington before the Congress, the legislature, to encourage them to write laws that would help credit unions serve their members, to discourage them from writing laws that might get in the way of credit unions serving their members. Credit unions are also federally regulated, just like banks are. We have a federal regulator, and so part of our job is to work with the federal regulators so that they understand credit unions and that the rules that they write and enforce help credit unions serve their members as opposed to getting in the way of credit unions serving their members. And then finally, we also advocate to the general public. One of the things we found in research is that credit unions sometimes are the best kept secret. We actually, when people talk to people who belong to credit unions, they find they're a great deal. They're better than any other alternative. So why isn't everybody a member of a credit union? Because not everybody knows about credit unions. Not everybody knows what a credit union is, and a lot of people don't know that they're eligible to join a credit union. And so part of what we do is advocating to the general public to increase the awareness of credit unions so more people can join credit unions and get the advantages, the benefits of being a credet union member.
Do you think in the future we'll see more people joining credit unions?
We do. In fact, it's the last 10 years we've seen a real uptick in the growth of credit union membership. We're up over 100 million members in the U.S. right now belong to credit unions.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but you know, not all of them use the credit union for all of their services, but we're right now up to 51 million members use the credit union as their main financial institution, as their primary financial institution. That's a lot. You know, 10 years ago it was less than 40 million, so it's been growing very fast. And especially since the financial crisis, you know, the Great Recession of almost 10 years ago now, that really scared a lot of people. It also kind of besmirched the reputation of the really large banks, because a lot of people thought that those banks were contributing to the financial mess that caused the Great Recession. And so they were looking for alternatives. And so we've actually had a substantial uptick in the growth of credit union members in the last 8 years coming out of that recession, because people are looking for an alternative.
So credit unions weren't impacted as bad as the banks were?
We were affected. Everybody was hurt during that recession. You know, consumers were hurt, people lost their jobs, home values fell, and so, you know, people had trouble paying their loans. So everyone was hurt, but credit unions were not, and because credit union members were hurt, that also hurt credit unions. But it turned out that the effect on credit unions was a lot milder than it was on banks. And that, again, comes back to our cooperative structure. Right. Because a credit union is run by people who don't own the credit union. They're not stockholders. And as a result of that, the people who make decisions, the managers and the board of directors, and the board of directors of a credit union, by the way, are almost all volunteers. They're not paid for their service. They're just doing out of the goodness of their heart. So they don't get rich if the bank gets rich. If the credit union gets rich, they don't get rich. And therefore, they don't have much of an incentive to try to swing for the fences to hit a home run. Because of the fact that credit union managers don't own the place and don't get rich, if the credit union or the bank gets rich, they tend to be a little bit more conservative in their financial management. They're a little bit more careful about the loans they make. And so, although everyone did get hurt in that last recession, credit unions came through it in much better shape than most banks did, because going into it, their financial business and dealings were less risky, just because of their being cooperatives. Can
anyone volunteer at a credit union?
Yeah.
Any member?
Any member can volunteer. You know that. Well, first of all, to be honest about this, a lot of the members of a credit union aren't really deeply into the cooperative spirit of a credit union. They belong to the credit union just because the credit union gives them a really good deal.
Right, benefits.
It's convenient, it's got better rates than other places, it acts in a friendly way, it offers good service, so that's why most people are attracted to credit unions. But if they look into it and they discover that oh, this is cooperative, they can get involved any way they want to. The credit union might have committees to help organize things. And the board of directors of a credit union is typically elected by the members of the credit union. And not everybody votes.
Right.
But enough people do
I'm
pay.
guilty.
Yeah. Well, next year you'll vote. So, no. Enough people pay attention and vote for that, which means that the people who are on the board of the credit union, even though they're not paid, for some reason they want to stay on the board. You know, maybe they like the free lunches they get once a month or something like that. But I mean, they get a really strong feeling of contributing, and so they like to do that.
Okay.
But so they're directing the professional managers to do things for the benefit of the members, because it's the members who vote for them.
Great. What contributions has the credit union movement made to the economic weather regarding the nation's financial history?
Yeah. Well, credit unions have sort of been this underpinning of support for consumers, and especially middle-class consumers. You don't have to be a rich person to deal with a credit union. So credit unions really serve lower, middle, and upper middle income people. That's who they concentrate on to provide services. So by providing basic services to that group, they help those people handle their finances and make loans and spend on things. The other thing is, during this last recession, credit unions actually were a large support to the economy. The recession would have been worse without credit unions. And that's because, going back to the fact that they tend to not be so risky, credit unions were not hurt as hard during the recession. And therefore, they didn't have to cut back on their lending as much during the recession. So during that last recession, credit unions actually kept lending, whereas a lot of other lenders had to stop because their financial condition was being hurt. And so, we actually believe, and the data point this out, and it's not only here, it happened in other countries, that cooperative financial institutions were a stabilizing force during the recession because they were able to continue lending.
Who sets the policy at credit unions?
Yeah, the policy at a credit union is set by the board. That's the elected board. They work with the senior management sort of as a team, but the ultimate policy is set by the volunteer members of the credit union who are elected to the board, and it is the management that executes it, that carries it out.
And the way governance work is pretty much the same way?
Yeah. The governance is done by this board, who's elected by the members.
Are credit unions safe? Are our deposits safe and insured by the government?
Same way as a bank.
Same way as a bank?
Yeah. Up to $250,000 per account by an agency of the federal government, backed up with the full faith and credit of the federal government. So for banks, it's the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation.
Okay.
For credit unions, it's the NCUA, National Credit Union Administration. They provide the same form of deposit insurance, $250,000 per account. And if a credit union fails, that government agency pays for the deposits. And if that agency runs out of money, it's backed up by the Treasury, just as is the case for FDIC. However, not however, but actually it's even better than that. During the last recession, the credit union's deposit insurance system took much smaller losses than the bank deposit insurance system did, because the credit unions went into it with a less risky balance sheet. Okay. So we're just as insured as a bank is, but we also tend to we're less likely to require the taxpayer to bail out the deposit insurance system. Now, taxpayers did not have to bail out the bank deposit insurance system, but it got a lot closer than the credit union deposit insurance system did. But the members, the consumers, get exactly the same protection in a credit union or in a bank.
What if a credit union or a bank crashes and that $250,000 insured threshold? What happens to, say, like if someone had $500,000 in the bank?
Well, if
what happens to the money?
Actually, the way you can do it is, if you're concerned about that, you would not put more than $250,000 in one account in one financial institution.
Okay.
So now, not too many of our members have this problem, of having more than $250,000 in an account. But like a couple could have an account in one name, an account in the other name, and a joint account in both of their names. That's $750,000 right there. Just those two people in one institution. And if they had more than $750,000, tough problem to have. Again, not many of our members have that. They could open an account in another financial institution. An IRA account will be separate, so that wouldn't account. So you can spread the money in different accounts. It's not $250,000 per person, it's per account.
That's good to know, because I'm sure a lot of people do not know that.
Yeah.
What are some of the greatest challenges in keeping the tax structured?
Yeah, one of the differences that credit unions have compared to commercial banks is that we don't pay income taxes. We're not subject to the corporate income tax.
Oh.
And that's because we are not-for-profit cooperatives. We don't collect profits to send off to stockholders on which we would have to pay taxes. The only reason credit unions have to have some net income, the only reason that the money they collect from their members from loans and that from some of the investments that they have, they don't pay all of that out in terms of operating expenses or interest that they pay on savings, they have to keep a little bit of that just so they can build up some reserves for safety in the future. But they don't distribute that to stockholders or anyone else. And so for that reason, we don't pay federal income tax. This is not an issue without controversy, let's say that. We have some competitors in the financial services market, which are commercial banks, especially community banks, smaller banks. And they're not too happy with the idea that we don't pay federal income taxes. And so they keep trying to ask Congress to impose taxes on us, and we keep trying to explain to Congress why, as not-for-profit cooperatives, we shouldn't be subject to tax.
Right.
And I guess one of the, I could see if I were a banker, I'd be upset about credit unions, but they don't really take into consideration that we are indeed different. The people who run a credit union have a different deal from the people who run a bank.
Right.
The people who run a bank own it, and if they build up the value of the bank, they get to cash out. And building up that profit.
Right.
The people who run a credit union, if they run up the value of the credit union, that belongs to the members. And so it really is a different world.
It really is. I guess it really is a movement.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. How did credit unions sustain over the years?
Well, you really have to keep growing, or if you're not growing, you're dying. So they have to keep growing. To sustain over their years, they have to keep up with the latest technology, which is really tough. They have to keep up with the latest technology because consumers want convenience.
Right.
We want instant access. We want to be able to, use our smartphones to deposit a check instead of having to go to a branch and all those sorts of things. We want all that immediate convenience, and so one of the hard things for credit unions, and this is hard for banks too, is to keep up with. It's kind of expensive to always have the latest technology available.
Right, because technology is always changing.
It is.
Always changing.
At an increasing rate too.
Right.
And so because of that, it's becoming harder and harder for the really small credit unions to survive. Now, many of them can, but what's happening is that many of them are, some of them at least, are combining with other small credit unions to make larger credit unions so that they're large enough to offer these sort of services. But for credit unions to sustain through time, they need to keep up with the latest products and services. And actually, they have a leg up on the competition in surviving because the credit union only has one master, which is its members, its customers. It's actually easier to run a business if you don't have to please the stockholders. The only people you need to take care of are your members, your customers. Because when you do that, you tend to make your customers, your members happy,
right.
And they keep coming back. So it's credit unions, the cooperatives, the banks like to say our big advantage is our tax structure. It's not. They pay more in dividends to stockholders than they pay in taxes. Our big advantage is that we don't have to pay dividends to stockholders. We don't have to please investors. We can concentrate solely on pleasing our owners, who happen to be our customers, our members.
Do you think they would ever, that law ever pass where you have to pay federal
income taxes?
Income taxes?
So long as credit unions stay true to their mission of providing low-cost, high-quality,
excellent service
to their members in a cooperative way, I think the tax exemption is safe. But it's going to be an ongoing political battle.
Right. Thank you, Bill, for joining us. Coming up next, we'll be talking to Mario about his philanthropic involvement in the community. We'll be right back.
Okay, if you can, please state your name and your age.
Tasha Gibbs, and I'm 25.
All right. So, Ms. Natasha, when you think of credit unions, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Banks?
Okay. Do you know the difference between a traditional bank and a credit union?
No.
How long have you had banking experience?
Been with the bank?
Yep.
Since
any bank.
High school, I started with Wachovia, so let's say 10 years.
Okay. Out of 10 years worth of experience and being an adult, what are some things that you absolutely, positively have loved about your banks?
I
if
like
anything.
Mobile banking, very convenient, but that might be it.
Okay, so the convenience, maybe some of the technologies.
Yeah.
So as a young adult, pertaining to young adults in general, what do you think are some things that are very attractive to any particular bank?
I'm not actually sure what separates one from the other. My mom got me started with Wachovia, and they got taken over by Wells Fargo, so I just happen to still be with Wells Fargo right now.
Okay. So have you ever gone through the process of looking at banks, or were you just born into the bank that you have now?
That just happens to be where I am. I haven't really looked around.
If you could be an owner of a bank, would that be something that would be beneficial to you?
Yeah, I think being an owner of anything is a good place to be in.
Why?
Because you're the boss and it's your business.
Good. Thank you.
Welcome back to Outside Voice. I'm Marva Crutchfield, and I'm here with Mario. Welcome back, Mario.
Hey.
Marva, you're the Director of Business Development at the Department of Interior, Federal Credit Union.
Yes. Yes.
Let's discuss the impact on financial wellness.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
You know, just like with Bill and with John, you know, Bill from the national, John from the regional, mostly the things that we do on the community level, it may look very different. A lot of the things that my credit union does and other credit unions may do for their members will share very similar viewpoint on their cultures. The way we go about it is just ultimately by providing, you know, excellence in services, products, a low to no fee structure to our members. We give our members a voice on things that they want, things that they feel like they need. And ultimately just outright just do the right thing for our members in our capacity, which of course shares similarity to every other credit union, but ways we go about it may be a little bit different on what our focus is. For example, our credit union is very technology based. We're very technology savvy, seeing how we have members across the nation. So we're heavy on the technology side to accommodate to the needs of our members.
Tell me about the culture. How does it differ between traditional banks and other credit unions?
What I hear from members that I speak to, or potential members or clients of banks, really is night and day. The culture as an employee of my credit union is one that's very rewarding, by which my credit union really, I would probably say they really try to build a culture for creativity. You know, how are we going to go about doing this? What's in the best case scenario for our members? What type of new programs or what type of new promotions can we add on top of our already low interest rates or our already low services in terms of fees that we may have? What are some things that we can do to tweak based on society or based on the culture or based on the demographic, be it young adults, or something like that we may not even have within our credit union to create? So I would feel that our credit union is very good at identifying what needs may be for our membership that will tie I'll probably say tie back to the mission and values of our sponsor. So it makes our sponsor happy, which is the Department of Interior, makes our members happy, employees, volunteers, and their family of the Department of Interior, and then our employees, ourselves.
What are the eligibility requirements?
For us, it's our field of membership primarily includes the Department of Interior employees. So I have the employees, you have the family members, and volunteers of DOI. Outside of that, we have what we call SEG groups, select employer groups, and these are groups that are partnered with the Department of Interior that have great working relationship with the Department of Interior. For example, you have the National Park Service, which is in our field of membership, and a select employer group would be the National Park Foundation. So they're also in. So those members, those employees, their family members, those volunteers would fall into our field of membership.
Tell me about the philanthropic initiative in the community. You work with a lot of volunteers. You're out there in the community. You're constantly trying to get new members and work with them to, come aboard. Tell me, a little bit about what you do in the community.
A lot. Not a lot of sleeping. We established a philanthropic committee at the end of 2011. We're in 2012, from 2015 now. And basically the idea behind the philanthropic committee was we looked at the community in which we lived in. We looked at our SEG groups. We looked at our sponsor. We looked at our demographic, age groups and things like that of people who are already in our members of the interior. And we said, well, mirroring after the image of the Department of Interior. So, for example, the Department of Interior has some odd estimated 90,000 some odd employees, but the sweet spot for the DOI is the volunteers. Very, very, very volunteer heavy. So we said, well, let's put together a committee that will motivate volunteers, that will increase employee morale. So let's use our own employees to pull this thing off. So it was, let's go out and let's say that we're going to go out in the community every single month, once a month, to volunteer, to give back, to sponsor, to something in the community using our members and our employees. So let's, raise awareness of whatever event that it is. Let our let our employees volunteer, promote it on social media so that our members can see where we're at, what we're doing, and then go out and say, hey, we're here as a representative or as a from the Department of Interior, but we're the credit union. So people usually kind of they're like, oh, are you a friends group, or are you a different organization? We're like, no, we're the credit union.
And you wouldn't think that you're a credit union, right? No. What made you want to start that?
The need for volunteers. Everyone needed volunteers, and it seemed as if even within the Department of the Interior, not many bureaus, it's almost like they don't talk to each other. You know, it's like having a bunch of kids in a house and nobody's speaking to one another. So when I kind of saw that, I said, well, it'd be a great opportunity for me to bridge relationships with brand new SEG groups. If you're an employee-based group that has a great relationship with the DOI, you and I could build a relationship because ultimately the core values of the credit union, which is ultimately people helping people, people have a difficulty trying to see that because they're used to traditional bank style. Like, I want something from you.
Right.
So until you don't, I can show you my cards, but you still may not believe me.
I mean, because you wouldn't think that a credit union, I would think that a credit union or a bank wants something from me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So when you show up and you're like, hey, I just,
right.
That's the kicker. It's I show up, we volunteer, we're full on giving to whatever your mission and vision is, and then they find out that you're a financial institution. They're like, well, what did you get out of this?
Like, why am I here?
Yeah, why are you all here?
Right, what are you doing for me? I'm giving you my money. My money is in your bank.
Yeah, because people value their time, especially in this area. So when they see 5 or 7 people coming out for no good reason but to support, then that usually sparks questions that I wouldn't be able to ask if that didn't happen the other way. So DOI, they're happy. They're happy because they're like, oh, our credit union's active on our behalf, and they didn't ask us to be. And the community gets to be enriched because when you sit down, when you're playing in the dirt or cleaning out, weeds or things at the Kennel with Aquatic Gardens, you'd be amazed the type of conversations you have. So it bridges a lot of gaps and brings a lot of things together, all for the ultimate. The goal for us is financial wellness.
Do you target certain audiences, like the younger generation, the older, the middle class?
We have strategic approaches for different groups based on what promotions we're looking at, putting out there, or if we're trying to get the attention of, like, let's say an underserved area. If it's a young adult, then we'll focus on a young adult, which we actually just did not too long ago. We just actually within the last year or so, or 2 years, had created a young adult account, which we didn't have, which is another glory of being in a credit union. You hear what the members need, and the credit union has the ability to create things to fill that void of what your members want. So we didn't have an account for young adults at all.
That traditional banks will not do for you.
Yeah, oh no. If it's not a part of their business structure, it's not happening. Whether it's for the member, whether it's for their clients or not. But for us, we found that our members wanted it, so we created one. We said, hey, well, let's do a young adult account. Let's make it amazing.
Right.
Let's give a 3% interest rate on the first a certain amount of money in there on a checking account. Let's give them all these benefits and perks to motivate people,
Right.
or especially young adults, to bank in a more, not necessarily a smart way, but a more advantageous way that really will work on or look at their needs and get them where they want to go.
And that's something that's very much needed. How do you bridge the gap?
You know, I think it's funny. Something another interview that I was in had asked a very similar question, and my answer to that would be, I think there's something to be said with living by or operating by design rather than default. A lot of people will sign you up for, when you get hired, you have a job description. This is what that job description is, and a lot of people just stick to that. Well, to get the job done or to really maximize your ability based on what you're able to do and what you can't do, you'd have to live or find a way to push that towards the design of what you're for. So for me, for example, when I first thought of the philanthropic committee, I saw the needs, but a passion of mine is also for the underserved, the financial literacy, spreading the good word about, just money matters. So I've found a niche within my credit union to walk by the design of things that I actually do, whether or not the credit union was paying me for it or not. I was still doing it before then, volunteering. Yeah, things of that nature. But I was able to tie the two together. So you find leverage. You need volunteers. This person needs something, and if I'm out there, no one's pounding the pavement, but if I'm pounding the pavement, then I can go out there on your behalf and say, hey, I know someone. It's just like networking, it's networking at its best.
It's a movement.
It is. It's a movement. It is.
What initiative are you most proud of?
I would say it would be the young adults. We had, when we had first piloted the young adult account, there's always some pushback anywhere you go with doing something new, because A, it was brand new, and B, there wasn't many, we had to build out for it, because if it wasn't there at the beginning, then we had to build everything around it to make it work. That would be probably my favorite, because it gave me a reason to start going out and targeting young adult groups.
You have won several awards in the community for your involvement. You've won the Social Improvement Award, the Rockstar Award, Financial Literacy Program Award.
Yeah.
This is one of the ways the credit union share the love with the community. Take a look at your video.
Welcome to the Interior Federal Credit Union. At the heart of the credit union's social mission, you'll find people helping people. How we work with communities and members is simply by getting out and getting active. Every month we stretch beyond the walls of the credit union to volunteer, to sponsor, and to educate. Since launching this initiative, we've connected 128 volunteers with various activities who have contributed to over 550 volunteer hours at more than 30 events. This is how we share the love.
As a young professional, how important is innovation for the future of credit unions?
It's probably, I would probably say it's probably one of the #1 needed components of the culture, and it has to be the culture of the credit union, because without it, I don't really see it spurning much growth unless people can have the ability literally to dream. It's really a dreaming thing, because if you get a vision of something that you want to do or try to do, I mean, I'm humbled that I've been able to be the recipient of so many awards and so many different posts and things like that. It's gone out about me, but out of those 4 or 5 things that I've won in this calendar year, I've probably had dozens of ideas that all failed, that I tried, but all failed.
Right.
But that's something about my credit union. We were talking about creativity and a culture. They really cultivate an innovative way of thinking, because if you don't, you may miss the mark. You may not. And if you're not really dreaming about things that aren't out there yet, then you really don't find that you're going somewhere. You just kind of sit stagnant, and that's not where young adults sit, really, rarely at all.
How does the Department of Interior Federal Credit Union foster an environment to produce innovations?
Outside of the normal meetings and things like that, we'll come together and really take a forward approach on reality. There are several times that I'll be in a meeting with someone and my manager will say, well, you know what, my son opened up an account with us, and the process took so long, and he went somewhere else, his last bank, and it didn't take that long. That shouldn't be happening. Just a very real life approach of, you know, are we there yet type of situation, where people kind of wake up and they realize they may have missed something or not got something. And we look into those things. So we listen to what people have to say. We look around at what we're doing, kind of double checking. It definitely is a matter of trying to stay on top of the flow of what's needed for our members. Because what's needed for our members may not be what's needed for someone else's membership group. So we're not looking to recreate the wheel, just trying to make sure that we're doing the best thing that we can for our members.
Great. Is there any way to get in touch with you?
Yes, you can get in touch with me even directly at www.doifcu.org. So Department of Interior, Federal Credit Union .org.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Outside Voice Show. I hope that all the information provided to you gave you a better understanding of the difference between credit unions versus traditional banks, and how you can make this credit union movement work for you or your business, and perhaps lead you on a road to financial wellness and economic restoration. If you have any questions about the show, please like us on Facebook, watch more episodes on our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. I'm Marva Crutchfield. Thank you.